Sometimes the biggest battles aren't fought with fists or fire, but with words, with reputation, and with the weight of a family legacy resting on your shoulders. Lou Fleming has always been the strong one, the organizer, the one who holds the pieces of Heartland together when everything feels like it's falling apart. But what happens when her own name, the very thing that defines her, gets dragged through the mud? What happens when the people she's sacrificed for start to question her choices, her worth, and even her place at Heartland? This is the story of Lou's fight to reclaim not just her reputation, but her place in the heart of the land she loves most. Heartland has always been more than a ranch. It is a home, a symbol of family, love, and resilience that stretches back through generations. For Lou, it has always been both a blessing and a burden. Growing up under the shadow of Jack's wisdom and Amy's bond with the horses, Lou never found it easy to carve out her own space. Yet over the years, she proved herself in ways that no one could deny. From handling business deals to stepping up as a mother and even trying her hand in politics, Lou has always pushed forward. She was the one who looked at the bigger picture, the one who knew how to balance Heartland's traditions with the changes the world demanded. But time has a way of testing even the strongest. As the seasons rolled on, Lou began to notice how fragile her place at Heartland truly was. Amy was always seen as the heart of the horses. Jack was the soul of the land. Even Georgie had found her purpose as a rider with fire in her heart. Lou, on the other hand, was the planner, the talker, the dreamer. She held things together, but people rarely noticed. And when they did notice, they didn't always appreciate the weight she carried. Her path hasn't been easy. Every choice she made came with sacrifices. She sacrificed time with her children to hold Heartland's business together. She sacrificed her own dreams of love more than once, putting the family first. And still, the whispers never stopped. Was she too focused on herself? Was she really the one keeping Heartland strong, or was she just standing in the shadows of others? Lou's story has always been about finding her place. But as we step into this new chapter, that struggle becomes more intense than ever. A storm is building, one that threatens not only Heartland's future, but Lou's identity within it. Rumors begin to spread. Old rivals reappear, and the people she trusted most begin to waver. It is not just about managing ranch bills, saving horses, or keeping the land safe anymore. It is about something far more personal. It is about her name, her honor, and her right to be seen as a true part of Heartland's heartbeat. To understand the fight Lou is about to face, we must remember where she started. From the day her mother passed, Lou felt a responsibility to step into roles she wasn't ready for. She became the one who worried, who planned, who made sure no one else had to carry too much. She gave herself the role of protector without ever asking if she wanted it. And now, years later, all of those choices come crashing back to challenge her. Because this time, Lou is not just protecting the ranch, she is protecting herself. Whispers. That's how it always begins. Not with a storm crashing down on the house, not with fences breaking under wild winds, but with soft voices that spread like smoke in the air. For Lou, those whispers cut deeper than any physical wound. At first they came from the town, murmurs about whether she really cared about Heartland anymore, or if her ambitions had taken her too far away from the ranch. Then they grew sharper, fueled by an old rival who knew exactly where her weaknesses were buried. And suddenly Lou's name, the very thing she had worked her entire life to protect, was under fire. The conflict wasn't just about gossip, it was about trust. Some said Lou was more focused on herself than her family. Others claimed she had lost touch with what Heartland stood for. To outsiders, it might have seemed like silly talk, but to Lou, it was her entire world unraveling. Every rumor chipped away at her place in the community. Every doubt cast by a neighbor or even a family member felt like a knife twisting deeper. Heartland wasn't just a ranch. It was her bloodline, her duty, and her refuge. And now, people were questioning if she even deserved to carry the name that bound her to it. For the first time, Lou felt the walls closing in. She could handle the long days of work. She could manage the endless bills and negotiations. But how do you fight against shadows? How do you fight against words that twist into lies before you can even breathe to answer them? That was the war she faced. Not on horseback, not in a courtroom, but in the hearts and minds of the people she had sacrificed everything to protect. The betrayal stung most when it came from close to home. Amy, the sister who always tried to support her, struggled to find the words. Jack, wise as he was, couldn't fix the whispers of the town with his steady presence alone. Even Georgie, fiery and passionate, wondered aloud if maybe Lou had stretched herself too thin. Lou didn't blame them. Not fully, but the hurt was there. If her own family doubted her, how could she expect anyone else to stand with her? And then came the rival, someone who saw Heartland not as a home, but as an opportunity. Someone who wanted to turn the whispers into shouts, who wanted to see Lou broken, humiliated, and pushed aside. They framed her as someone selfish, someone who had forgotten the true meaning of Heartland. Every meeting, every town hall, every glance across the ranch became a battle. The rival's words slithered into every corner. Lou isn't the heart of Heartland. She's just trying to own it. But here lies the heart of Lou's conflict. It wasn't only about her reputation. It was about what her name meant for the future. If she lost this fight, she wouldn't just lose face in front of neighbors. She would lose her place in the family legacy. And if that happened, Heartland itself would be left vulnerable, open to hands that didn't understand the sacrifice and love poured into every fence post, every barn beam, every acre of the land. The weight was unbearable, but Lou couldn't walk away. Not now. Not when everything she had ever done, every sleepless night, every hard choice, was being called into question. This was more than a test of endurance. It was a test of who she truly was. Would she surrender her name to the whispers? Or would she rise and reclaim it, no matter the cost? Heartland has always been more than wood, fences, and wide fields. It breathes. It carries the laughter of children who grew up running barefoot across its soil. It holds the tears of those who have buried dreams and loved ones in its quiet corners. To the family, it has always been sacred ground. But as Lou fought her own war against doubt and whispers, the land itself seemed to be caught in its own struggle to survive. Change was pressing in from every direction. Developers had their eyes on the surrounding valley, hungry to turn open space into concrete and steel. Rival ranchers were pushing harder, offering flashy promises that pulled business away from Heartland. Even the horses, the very soul of the place, seemed restless, as if they could sense the tension in every human voice, in every heavy silence at the dinner table. Heartland was being tested, just as Lou was, and the two battles began to mirror each other in ways no one could ignore. Every time Lou looked out over the land, she felt the connection more deeply. Saving her name wasn't just about pride, it was about protecting Heartland from being swallowed by forces that didn't understand it. To outsiders, the ranch was a piece of property. To Lou, it was a living memory. Every barn beam carried the weight of Jack's calloused hands. Every trail carried Amy's bond with the horses. Every room echoed with the voice of her late mother. If Lou lost herself, Heartland would lose part of its soul. But Heartland was also fragile. Bills stacked higher than they could pay. Repairs were postponed, barns patched up just enough to survive another season. What used to be solved with hard work and determination now felt like an endless cycle of near disasters. One broken fence led to a runaway horse. One late payment risked foreclosure talks. One small mistake spread quickly, just like the whispers about Lou herself. Yet even in its weakest moments, Heartland still stood proud. The sunset still burned across the sky in fiery orange. The horses still ran with grace that could steal the breath of anyone watching. Jack's wisdom still carried weight around the dinner table. Amy's gentle hands still healed the wounded and the lost. And in those moments, Lou felt a flicker of hope. If the land itself could stand tall against the storm, maybe she could too. The continuation of Heartland wasn't guaranteed. It was something they had to fight for every single day. Just like Lou's struggle, the ranch's survival depended on resilience, on refusing to give in even when the odds seemed impossible. And that parallel began to give Lou strength. When she saw Amy saddle a horse despite the biting cold, when she saw Jack mend a fence with his quiet determination, Lou remembered. Heartland had survived loss before. It had survived hardship. It could survive this too, if they stood together. The future of Heartland wasn't written yet. It was still waiting, like a blank page filled with possibility. And Lou knew that if she reclaimed her name, her identity, her rightful place, then Heartland would continue. Not just as land, but as a living, breathing story carried forward by everyone who believed in it. Because Heartland wasn't only about survival, it was about legacy, and legacies don't end easily. They fight back. Every battle carves a line between allies and enemies, but for Lou, the line was never clear. The hardest part of her struggle wasn't the rival ranchers or the cold-eyed developers who wanted Heartland for themselves. It was the silence at her own kitchen table, the hesitation in the voices of those she loved most. Amy, her sister, had always been Lou's closest anchor. Amy believed in healing, with horses, with patience, with quiet strength. But Amy wasn't a fighter in the same way Lou was. She didn't know how to stand in front of a crowd and demand respect. She didn't know the sting of words twisted against her. When the town whispered, Amy wanted to soothe, not to shout back. Lou admired her for that gentleness, but in the quiet moments, Lou also felt alone, because sometimes silence feels like doubt. And doubt from family cuts deeper than any rumor. Jack was different. Jack had lived through storms greater than this. He had buried loved ones, fought tooth and nail to keep Heartland alive, and carried grief in the lines of his face. To Lou, he was a pillar, but even pillars can be worn down. Jack told her to hold her head high, to remember that the truth will outlast lies. His wisdom calmed her storms, but his words weren't weapons. They were shields. And Lou knew she needed more than a shield if she wanted to reclaim her name. She needed fire. Then there was Georgie, strong-willed and bold, never afraid to speak her mind. Georgie looked at Lou with both admiration and frustration. She loved her aunt, but she also questioned her choices, sometimes aloud, sometimes with just a glance. Georgie represented the new generation of Heartland, a future built on both rebellion and love. And though her words often stung, Lou saw something powerful in them, a challenge. Georgie was a reminder that leadership wasn't given. It was earned day by day, even within the family. But not all obstacles wore familiar faces. The rival who had risen against her was cunning, using every mistake Lou had made in the past as fuel for their campaign. They painted her as selfish, as someone too ambitious, too distracted by politics and business deals to truly care about Heartland. Their voice grew louder at community gatherings, their arguments slick with charm. And with every nod they earned from the townsfolk, Lou felt the ground beneath her shake. The cruelest obstacle, though, wasn't outside. It was inside. It was the voice in Lou's own head. The voice that told her maybe the whispers were right. Maybe she had stretched herself too thin. Maybe she wasn't the heart of Heartland after all. That inner doubt shadowed her every move. When she stood to speak, it whispered that her words would fall flat. When she planned to fight back, it warned her that she'd only make things worse. And yet, even in the storm, sparks of hope remained. Amy's quiet loyalty, Jack's steady guidance, Georgie's fiery spirit, they were not weapons, but they were reminders that Lou wasn't entirely alone. She began to see that allies don't always fight the way you expect them to. Some hold the line with silence. Some guard you with wisdom. Some push you harder by questioning you. And maybe, just maybe, those were the allies Lou needed most. Still, the obstacles were real, and they were closing in. The rival's influence was spreading. The land was fragile. Her family was torn between love and doubt. And the voice inside her wouldn't let her rest. The path ahead was uncertain, full of thorns and shadows. But Lou knew one thing with a clarity that burned like fire. If she was to reclaim her name and protect Heartland's future, she couldn't run from these allies or obstacles. She had to face them all, head on. Every story has that moment when the hero almost gives up. For Lou, it came quietly, like the slow sinking of a stone into deep water. There was no dramatic crash, no sudden explosion of anger. Instead, it was the weight of 100 small doubts pressing her down until she could hardly breathe. It began with a town meeting. The hall was packed with neighbors, ranchers, and townsfolk whose families had known hers for years. Lou stood at the front, determined to speak, determined to prove her place in Heartland's story. But when her rival took the floor, words slid from their mouth like polished steel. They painted Lou as a woman too ambitious, too self-centered, too distracted by her own dreams to understand the heartbeat of the land. And the worst part? The crowd listened. Their silence was heavier than any jeer. Lou tried to answer. She tried to defend herself. But her words tangled, caught between her anger and her fear. She looked out into the crowd and saw eyes turning away, heads shaking, whispers rising again. Even Amy, standing in the back, wore a look of quiet sorrow, as if she didn't know how to reach her. And that was when Lou felt it, the breaking. She left the hall with her head down. Outside, the night air was cold, but inside, she burned with shame. For the first time, she thought about surrender. Maybe Heartland didn't need her voice. Maybe her family would be better without her always pushing, always planning, always fighting battles no one wanted. She thought about stepping aside, letting the ranch carry on without her. The idea hurt, but it also tempted her. To give up would mean peace. But Heartland has a way of speaking when you least expect it. That night, as Lou walked across the darkened yard, she heard the restless neigh of a horse. She followed the sound to the paddock, where one of the younger horses kicked against the rails, spooked by the storm rolling in across the horizon. Lou approached slowly, whispering calm words, steadying her hands on the reins. The horse's wild fear mirrored her own, but as she held it close, she felt something stir inside her. She remembered why she had fought so long. Heartland wasn't just a piece of land. It wasn't just barns, fences, and family dinners. It was a promise her parents had passed down, a promise Jack had protected, a promise Amy and Georgie carried in their own ways. And if Lou gave up now, she would be breaking that promise, not just to them, but to herself. The storm broke above her, rain lashing against the ground, thunder rolling across the hills. Lou stood in it, drenched but unshaken, her arms wrapped around the frightened horse. And in that moment, she understood. Surrender was not an option. The rival could twist her past, the town could doubt her, even her family could question her. But Lou's strength wasn't in their approval. It was in her determination. Her identity wasn't a gift given by others. It was something she had built with sweat, sacrifice, and unyielding love. The turning point wasn't loud. It wasn't a grand speech or a sudden victory. It was a quiet decision in the middle of a storm. I will not let them take my name. I will not let them take Heartland. From that moment, Lou's fight changed. She was no longer defending herself with fragile words. She was reclaiming her ground with unshakable resolve. And that resolve would carry her into the battles still to come.